Hello everybody, SlimKirby here, and welcome back to the Animal Crossing Let's Play. You are currently watching the abridged portion of this playthrough, where I cut out all the fluff and simply talk about my adventures of playing through an entire year of Animal Crossing in a summary format. If you'd rather watch the playthrough in its entirety, check out the video description for a link to a playlist that has all the episodes and stream sessions I've done, raw and unedited. But if you'd rather stick around for these videos, well, just sit back and enjoy my adventures through Popstar. Tuesday, June 24th. After a slight panic from me yesterday, we did receive our final museum gift today. And, big surprise, our reward for completing the museum is the museum model. So now, we can have a replica of the museum at our house. This replica is actually quite large too, and takes up 2 spaces, so keep that in mind if you want to display it in your house. But yeah, with this acquisition, there's not really much more I want to do in this playthrough. I'll still item code a few things, and a couple of rewards that I definitely won't be able to obtain naturally. And for today, for example, since Sahara was today's visitor, I just used this opportunity to item code another one of the island items. Speaking of which, I should probably visit the island one more time before the end of the playthrough, just to say goodbye to Flossie, so I'll definitely make some time for that. Back in neighbor territory, I swear, the game is trying to do everything it can to get me to keep Sui. Apparently, she has a heart mark on the back of her head, which is kinda cool and cute at the same time. Ugh, I'm really struggling with this one, guys. She might be kinda cool, but I hate that name so much. I don't really have anything against the name Sue in particular. I did know a really nasty Sue growing up, but Sue from Fire Emblem 6 is an absolute badass, so it kinda cancels out anyway. It's just the fact that it's Sue-E. That E at the end of her name really kills it for me. I also decided to write Lulu a letter referencing my most recent obsession at the time, Has Been Hotel, a really adult cartoon show with musical numbers that seriously go harder than any music I've heard in a very long time. Definitely recommended, assuming you are, you know, an adult and can stomach more mature themes, strong language, and potential dark humor as well. Wednesday, June 25th. For literally the 3rd day in a row, at least I think it's been 3 days, maybe even longer honestly, it has been raining up a storm in Popstar. I don't know if something sinister is going on with Mother Nature, or perfect chaos is attacking, but there has definitely been plenty of precipitation lately, that's for sure. Not a lot was going on today, though. I bought a really cool mop from the shop today, and when I was writing a letter to Cookie, I almost sent it to her as a gift before I realized, it's a damn mop, what the hell am I doing? I also continue to debate Sui's future in Popstar, completely unaware of what forces were going to be at play very soon. More on that later. We also got notified of the very last holiday event we'll be experiencing in Popstar on the 4th of July. Man, I can't believe we've almost been around an entire cycle of the calendar. We've come so very far, guys. Thursday, June 26th. Yeah, I'm absolutely convinced this is the work of perfect chaos or something, because it's still raining for the 4th day in a row. I was really hoping to get some new gyroids too, just to get as close to that complete catalog mark as possible, but this rain is just not letting up. There seriously has to be something truly evil going on for an omen of this degree to be developing. And I know I've been joking about perfect chaos and everything, but actually, let's just say Chat and I had a slightly different idea for what's really going on here. Let's set the stage. First and foremost, I found out that someone in town buried a hamster cage in town. This bulletin board message was completely anonymous though, so we couldn't really identify who was responsible for this. Somehow this led us to believe that it wasn't just the cage that was buried, but also a live hamster as well, and the absolute thought of this was completely sickening. Around this time, we also noticed our newest neighbor Sue-E being incredibly mean to Maddie, but when we got closer to the situation, Maddie completely changed her tune and started acting happy, almost at the drop of a dime. From this, we gathered that Sue-E was threatening Maddie on the side to keep up appearances to make it think like nothing bad was going on. Now, I know what you're thinking. Something that deplorable is completely ridiculous and makes no sense, but you know what's also ridiculous, deplorable, and makes no sense? Burying a hamster cage with a live hamster inside. And you know, now that I mention it, that bulletin board message did seem very blunt and nasty, almost like it was written by a snooty villager. You see where I'm going with this? More than that, since she started living here in Popstar, it has been raining constantly. And sure, I know we were warned of this on the bulletin board a little while ago, that summer would start shortly after a lot of spring rains, but still, it didn't necessarily have to be at this exact time frame, whilst I was deciding whether or not to keep Sui. This had to be a sign of a higher power warning me of the dangers of this villager, and maybe I'm just coping and finding any excuse not to keep her, especially when you consider the fact that I don't want anyone important to move away on this final stretch of days, but just the fact we were able to workshop this lore into the Popstar narrative was pretty freaking insane, and it only got even more crazy for the next day. In other words, Sui may actually be the most evil villager we've ever had in this town. Even more than Caesar, and even more than Monique, too. And that's really scary to think about. I wrote to Maddie to try and calm her down and keep her spirits high by letting her know that the Sui problem will be taken care of, and that we just have to wait it out a few more days. Some members of my chat also started calling Sui Sussy instead because of how shady she's been lately. And even though I'm not big on Among Us culture, I did actually find this to be pretty appropriate and a funny joke, so I also went along with it. She has been quite sus after all. Other highlights of the day were catalog related. First and foremost, I decided to use an item code on the piggy bank item today, which is an item you can only get by saving up to 10 million bells in your post office savings account. Now, I have saved a lot of money in this playthrough so far, and I think at this point I was nearing around 9 million bells, but I knew for an absolute fact that there was no way I was going to get up to 10 million, even if I were to use turnips for the last 2 weeks. So I took the opportunity to get this item now and show it off for you guys, and I'll also get the other 2 post office items over the next couple of days as well, just to show those off too. Tonight was also a Wisp session, and we actually didn't get a gyroid or furniture item this time, but instead we actually got the last Gracie item we needed, the melon shirt. I believe this is also the last clothing item as well, but I'll confirm that tomorrow when we head to Nookington's. Fun fact, even if we didn't get this item from Wisp, I actually had it anyway in my Pieces town since John had a visit from Gracie not too long ago, and I do plan to go to Pieces one last time before the end of the project, so it was taken care of regardless, just sooner than I personally expected. Friday, June 27th. Hey, guess what? It's still freaking raining. Yep, I'm totally convinced this is Sui's doing. It has to be. Heck, I even started going as far as to blame Sui for pretty much everything that has gone wrong in Popstar. From all the troublesome neighbors we've had over the years, like Caesar and maybe even Monique, or at the very least trying to establish some connection between them. And who knows, maybe she was the one secretly trying to flood the town with those god-awful cherry shirts during all those shirt wars. Heck, maybe she also has some connection with Professor Plasma, and has been collaborating with him to try and prevent Wisp from giving me a perfect 100% catalog. Yeah, I'm definitely reaching and over-dramatizing the lore at this point, but again, after 350 days of this Let's Play, can you really even blame me for trying to have a little fun here? At the very least, I tried warning the rest of town about Sue and how sus she is, so hopefully this will finally scare her off. That, or maybe she'll go on offense and try to strike and finish me off for good, like she did with that poor little hamster. Now that's a chilling thought. It's fine though, because maybe our good murder duck friend Weber will come back and try to save me at the last moment, realizing he could use his mobster duck powers for some good as opposed to evil. Yeah, I'm really trying to get too fancy with the lore on this one, but hey, I can't help it. Things really started feeling like they were coming full circle again, which I guess makes sense considering we only have 14 days, or just 2 in-game weeks of the project left. In fact, I started noticing some things I hadn't seen since close to the beginning of this adventure. For instance, I actually saw an Arapema today. I didn't catch it because I was definitely rusty from fishing rare boys like this, but still, a big sense of deja vu. And speaking of deja vu, Maddie actually asked me to change her catchphrase today, and I decided to change it to a classic one, the one I gave her so many months ago, that she literally only kept for like 5 minutes. But hey, she says pickle again, so that's nice. What wasn't nice is that Bill was kind of displaying some jerkish tendencies again. He told me to catch a bug for him, and again, since it's raining, bugs are a little harder to come by. I did get something for him though, and he immediately commented on the fact that he would have preferred something less common. Hey, screw off, dude. You are lucky I even got you something in the rain like this, you dork. The last thing I should probably mention for the day was that I did manage to check the catalog today, and sure enough, we do have all the clothing items now. So, another completed section of the catalog for me. Overall, this wasn't a terrible catalog to collect for. Obviously, getting duplicates from Gracie was a pretty big oversight for this one, considering how many there are, but thankfully the shop has plenty of common shirts once you upgrade the store, and they are pretty cheap to get. Plus, the fact that some shirts are seasonal adds a pretty interesting element and dynamic to this catalog as well, something I wish I would have noticed much sooner. I also managed to get the mailbox model today as well, another item that you can only get by saying up to a certain number of bells in your savings account. But this time I think it's 100 million instead of just 10 million. I may have gotten close to the piggy bank, but I didn't even make it to 10% to this milestone. So this item was definitely not happening naturally, that's for sure. Plus, it's also just a mailbox, so whatever. Saturday, June 28th. Well guys, the rain has finally stopped, and after checking the map and mailbox, it's pretty obvious what went down. The sussy swine has finally decided to get the hell out of this town, and after the insane amount of ridiculous lore I came up with, I honestly don't blame her, since it was not looking good for her at all. Although Sui wasn't necessarily the worst neighbor we've ever had, she definitely had perhaps the most inconvenient tenure in this town, coming literally during the last few weeks of the playthrough, and replacing a very important villager in the process. Also, as I've pointed out several times, I really didn't like her name either. Overall though, she had a pretty cute design for a snooty though, a pig snooty at that, so I gotta give her some credit where it's due. But for all the other random stuff that I attributed to her, yeah, let's just say I have no idea what the hell I was thinking with all of that. But at this point, what's done is done, and we should probably just move on from it. And nothing says moving on better than getting a nice, cute gator villager as a replacement. Say hello to Allie, our first and only reptile villager. At least that I can recall right now, anyway. And honestly, I have a really good feeling about her. Given we're not exactly going to get a lot of time with her, even if we do write her a letter, since we only have 13 days left, but I'm getting really good vibes with her already, and I want to see where this goes. Heck, even Poncho is getting really good vibes from her too, considering he was all over her when I was trying to meet and talk to her for the first time. I know she's cute, dude, but still, at least wait until all of her stuff is out of her moving boxes, seriously. There was another new face in Popstar today too for this weekend's camping villager, and it was actually Pearl the cat. We really haven't seen a lot of felines in this playthrough, I've noticed. It's really only been Monique and Tangy, hasn't it? Anyway, Pearl is actually a snooty villager, which means she's actually a good one to use for the unique camping items. And that immediately gets proven to be correct when I get not only a mountain bike from her, but also the tent model, knocking out 2 more camping items off of my catalog list. Also, real talk, the mountain bike looks frickin' sweet. Definitely one of the best looking furniture items in this entire game, I gotta say. I still have a few items left for the camping list, but I think at this point I'll probably just item code them. Still though, made a lot more progress on this front than I thought I would at this point. For our town tune this week, and not to mention the penultimate town tune that we'll have for this playthrough, I landed on this one, which I thought was really appropriate considering where we were at this point in the Let's Play. Name that tune. And for this week's KK Slider song, we listened to the very last KK song I needed for my collection, KK Lullaby. It's time to say goodnight, folks. And before I signed off for the night, I also showed off the completed catalog of KK music in the shop. Once again, another section of the catalog completed. And before I move on to the next day, since we were quite literally approaching the final days of this project, I tried to make it a point to write one last very personalized letter to each of my villagers, just so I could start saying bye to each of them in a very meaningful way. I selected Dina today, who, while she hasn't had any major moments in this playthrough or town, she was a very helpful villager during the winter when I was trying to collect the igloo items, so she will always be seen as my official igloo buddy. She's a really sweet and kind soul and has always been very pleasant to be around. I'm gonna miss you, Dina. Thank you for everything. Sunday, June 29th. We have one more fishing tourney before June completely wraps up, but since I've already gotten my painting and also proved my point about the fishing rewards, I really don't have much incentive to win today, aside from maybe seeing what I get as reward now that I do have everything else. I caught a couple of fish and turned them in, but once I got a score of 25, I was pretty much done and saw no reason to do anything further. Not much really happened today aside from that though. I was surprised that Pearl had already left the village, so I couldn't do more camping games with her. And when it came to Nooks, I went ahead and item coded not only the post office model, but also the soccer NES game, since I wouldn't be able to use any codes tomorrow. I'll show off soccer later, but the one thing I will say about the post office model, having to save up to 1 billion bells in your savings account for it is completely ridiculous, and I don't wish that grind on anyone. That just needed to be said. My goodbye letter today went to Carmen, who, I'll admit, hasn't really done much in town since she's been here. I like her and don't mind talking to her, but she just didn't really do much of anything or have any major standout moments or memes. In fact, in one last-ditch effort to create some lore for her, we discovered that she might actually be the notorious villainess Carmen Sandiego, but to hide her evil ways, she decided to move to this town and not only have a low profile, but also changed her DNA and genetic makeup to that of a mouse. How did she get access to that type of technology? I don't know, probably Professor Plasma or something. Who the hell knows anymore? Monday, June 30th. It's the last day of June, so let's hurry up and wrap up this last month for good. First, since I decided not to check the bulletin board at 6 p.m. yesterday, it turns out that I did actually win the fishing tournament. See, I'm starting to think you just need a score of 25 to 27 to win comfortably without fear of getting sniped, but I don't feel 100% comfortable in confirming that just yet. What was our prize though? Well, wouldn't you believe it, we won another copy of Donkey Kong Jr. Math. I swear, why are they so insistent on pawning off that game in particular? Anyway, not that I expected to win anything or see anything amazing, but this month's raffle looked pretty bad as well. I'm glad I ultimately decided to item code everything from this prize pool early, because even if I didn't, I swear I don't think we would have gotten much from this anyway if the prizes stayed the same, because I saw a lot of repeat items over the last couple of months. So yeah, Nook, sorry to say, but once again, your selections are extremely subpar. I spent most of the day playing soccer, and no, not in real life, but in my newest NES acquisition, Soccer, for the NES. This game is okay. I feel like all the NES sports games are kind of lacking in some areas, and for this one in particular, it's just kind of awkward getting used to the control scheme. I also had a really hard time tackling my opponents to take the ball away, so it was hard to get possession back after losing it. I eventually managed to score 2 goals in this game, but the CPU managed to answer right back with goals of their own, proving that rubber banding AI even existed back in the days of the NES. The game ended up in a tie, and I was forced to have a sudden death shootout with my opponent, which also lasted pretty much until the final 2 kicks. I achieved victory by the narrowest of margins and took the USA to their World Cup victory over the nation of CP3. But yeah, not much to say about this game otherwise. Not the worst sports game in here, and if anything, it probably is the best, but I just have a little more attachment to golf just because it's, well, golf. I did really enjoy the cheerleader halftime show though in the middle of the game. It did make the game a lot more exciting. For the rest of the day, I just visited with a few neighbors and did a few other small tasks. When I was visiting Allie, once again, she seemed to have gotten the attention of another one of my male villagers, because Vladimir was all over her. Calm down, guys. I know she's a pretty reptile lady, but you gotta have some classic control over yourselves. I mean, look at me. I wasn't immediately all over Cookie when she first arrived. We had to build up to something first. Gracie was also here, but since we finished the clothing catalog now, I didn't really care about her that much. In fact, I cared so little that I put very little effort into cleaning her car, and she got really mad at me, especially since I cleaned the car while wearing one of her brand shirts as it was. Oh well, what can I say? My arm was tired. And for today's goodbye letter, I wrote to Pee-wee, whom I didn't have too much to say to, since he is still fairly new in town, but he's been a good Caesar replacement at the very least. I know the Pee-wee test was probably not the best rubric to use in determining whether a villager stayed or went, but I can safely say that it worked for this guy, at the absolute least. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we only have 10 days left of this project. We are seriously at the tail end of this, and I couldn't be happier or more excited. We just have one more holiday left to experience, one more visit to the island, one more visit to Pieces, and a huge helping of goodbyes to make. But after that, we will have accomplished our goal of living 366 days in Popstar. Let's finish this. Tuesday, July 1st. Man, it feels so weird being back in July again, especially thinking about how few days are left in this project. Heck, we even got a bulletin board post today that mentioned that the seasonal rains would last until July 16th, a date beyond the scope of this project, so expectations of touching the finish line were starting to get very real here. There wasn't too much to talk about during this day, though. We got a bonfire furniture item from an item code. Pretty sure that is one of the camping items, obviously. And there was some neighborly activity going on in the town fountain today, too. Although I wouldn't say too much of it was neighborly. Seemed like there was some fighting going on, actually. One incredibly surreal moment I noticed, though, was a lovely rainbow that appeared over the waterfall. And this just so happened to be in the district that Rainbow Rhoda used to live in. It's almost like she was making a cosmic appearance to say one last goodbye herself before the end of the journey. Aw, how sweet. My goodbye letter today was for Allie, which I didn't have too much to say to her because she's only been here a handful of days so far. She's been pretty nice and sweet though, and the other guys do seem to really like her as well, so I'm pretty satisfied that she ended up being one of my last move-ins. I also saw Wisp tonight for our penultimate reward from him, another Gyroid. Wednesday, July 2nd. Another short and sweet day, but the main thing I accomplished was item coding the last NES game we would be getting in the form of Donkey Kong Jr. And much like Soccer, Donkey Kong 3, Punch-Out, and Clu Clu Land D, this one could have only been gotten through promotional code by Nintendo, or, you know, using an item code like this. There isn't a whole lot to say about this game, though. Not as enjoyable as the original Donkey Kong, but at least better than its follow-up. Be very careful of fall damage in this one, though, because it will most likely be your cause of death here. Even leaping off of a trampoline will kill you if the solid ground you land on is just a bit too far from where the apex of your bounce is. Also, in Stage 3, you have to be very patient. And I mean very patient. I do like the final stage, though, but I'm a bit biased because they remixed this stage in Donkey Kong 94, which, again, shoutouts to that replay of mine, which I finished not too long ago on the channel. But yeah, not much to say about this game beyond that. It's fine, I guess. Before I continue, since I don't think I've been too clear on this, here's the breakdown of NES games and how you acquire them. I'll also mention some other NES games that I didn't showcase or talk about, although the reason for that is mainly because some of them are Japan only. The ones you can acquire from the lottery, Red Shop, or other villagers are Balloon Fight, Clu Clu Land, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Excite Bike, Golf, Pinball, and Tennis. I assume you can also use Wisp for these too. The games you acquire from island visits are Wario's Woods and Baseball. And finally, the Nintendo giveaways, as I just mentioned, are Soccer, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, Clu Clu Land D, and Punch-Out! Now, with that being said, there are a few other games that are technically possible, but I think you can only use external assistance for these, whether they be e-reader cards or action replay cheating devices. Because I have neither, I can't test this, but Mario Bros., Ice Climber, Super Mario Bros., and The Legend of Zelda are technically in the game's coding as well, although the latter three are apparently Japan only, while Mario Bros. Is America only. I also found out that a Mahjong game and another board game, Gomoko Narabe, were also part of Animal Force Plus, which is basically the Japanese GameCube version of the original N64 game, and they replaced soccer and Excitebike for some reason. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say about the NES titles in this game. Overall, back in the day, this was a really cool feature, and it was nice to have a way to play some of these classic arcade-like NES games. Given emulation is a lot easier to pull off these days, and some, if not most of these games, are pretty much just free on the Nintendo Switch Online service, but back in 2002, this was really neat, and I'm glad Nintendo offered this alternative. Getting back to Popstar, there's not much to really report on. Allie is still getting all the male's attention in town, particularly from the cranky villagers, as Pee-wee seems interested in her now as well. I'm honestly not even sure who I'm rooting for between Vlad and Pee-wee. I've known Vlad longer, but I can't help but feel like Pee-wee might be a better fit for her. Oh well, I'm sure she'll figure something out. I also start trying to trigger a favor involving Billy because I plan to visit Pieces one last time before the 10th. This will cause a move out likely by someone big, but at least they'll be close by in another village we'll technically be able to visit anytime we want, so they won't be gone forever at least. My goodbye letter today was for Sally, and really, much like the last few villagers, I didn't have too much to say, but I did praise her for her energy, enthusiasm, and general sweetness. She low-key probably had one of my favorite natural catchphrases, because there's just something funny about a squirrel going around saying, "Wee!" And I hope she takes that mentality wherever she goes, because she's definitely a keeper. Thursday, July 3rd. I got a new gyroid and used an item code for a lantern, one of the camping items I had left. That's seriously all that happened today, and the lantern didn't even look that cool either. I also did set up a favor for Billy, so we'll take care of that in 2 days after tomorrow's holiday. But yeah, that's really about it. My goodbye letter today was for Lulu. Low-key, she didn't do too much, but I did quite enjoy the piece of lore involving her being a parallel dimensional clone of the Lulu from Pieces. That definitely gave her a little bit of staying power, perhaps more if she moved in beyond just the last month. Friday, July 4th. I can't believe it, guys. It's our very last holiday in Popstar. It's kind of crazy to think that this time next week we won't even be in this town anymore, but let's not turn on the waterworks just yet, because we have fireworks to take a look at. Much like the meteor shower and harvest moon, this holiday takes place at the lake, and you'll be able to see all the pretty flashing explosive lights in the water's reflection, and I gotta say, it looks pretty cool, not gonna lie. You'll also find your lovable neighbors hanging out around the lake as well, and thankfully both my best friend and girlfriend were here, so I got to celebrate with both of them. Look at how cute Cookie is jumping around celebrating. Now that's thumbnail potential right there. As usual, if you find Tortimer, he'll give you an item to celebrate the occasion, and this time he gave us a bottle rocket. Unfortunately, you can't use it, it's purely cosmetic furniture item, but thankfully Tortimer isn't the only NPC handing out stuff today. If you head to the Lake Acre, you'll actually see Crazy Red here too, and he'll be allowing you to purchase some handhold items that you can use to celebrate. These items can be either balloons, pinwheels, or fans, and thankfully he was giving out fans today, the last of these items I still had to get for the catalog. He also allows you to purchase the entire stock of these items too, so if you are still missing any, this would be your chance to buy them. Unfortunately though, it's random which of the three he decides to go with, and since balloons and pinwheels can be gotten in other ways, this is the only way you can get fans, as far as I'm aware. So I got lucky this is what he decided to go with. Getting every fan did in fact complete the item catalog for me as well, so that's another section done. Only furniture and guy rides left, I think. Wendell was also in town today too, and much like I did with Gracie the other day, I decided to show off some other dialogue for the special visitor if you don't follow their instructions completely. I decided to give Wendell a fruit instead of fish, and yeah, he didn't seem too thrilled about it. Guess this man really knows what he likes, I suppose. My letter today was actually for Poncho. Poncho has been pretty good so far as a neighbor. He still feels kind of newish, but I was kind of writing him up as the town flirt, or the villager most interested in the ladies. Every society needs that role, I guess, and I suppose Poncho fits the bill pretty nicely. I would have more to say about him if he was around longer, but he did only come within the last stretch of 50 to 60 days, so you take what you can get. That will do it for another Animal Crossing episode. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you for the next one. Reminder that you can find links in the video description for the unedited recording sessions of this playthrough, as well as individual links to the streams in particular that featured the days covered in this episode summary. Also, this is the last time I'll have to do this outro for this project. I'll see you guys next time for the finale. Later, folks.